Michelle, super excited to have you here with us today. We're going to get into all things Instagram. And I just want to really, I can't wait to talk about Instagram because it does baffle me. And I can't wait to really dig into why that's so different from every other social media platform. So before we get into it, give us a little bit of your background and tell us why you became an entrepreneur.
Great question. And thanks for asking that. So in 2014, I actually left corporate America on purpose. I was working for a small PR firm after graduating from college. And in the middle of getting my master's, kind of unsure really where I wanted to go and doing what most parents tell their kids to do, go get a job, right? So I was working for a small public relations firm in Southern California. And quite frankly, if I can be candid, it was horrific. And every client paid an astronomical amount of money, got very little to no customer service, didn't have any say in what what us as a company was producing for them. There was no check-in meetings. There was no, hey, what do you think about this? We want to make sure it sounds like you and feels like you. None of that was happening. And so I was only there for about 6 months and literally walked into my boss's office and said, I quit and I'm going to go do this better. And I'm going to show people that there are people that will care about them. And I said exactly that to her. And maybe that was good. Maybe that was bad. I'm not sure. But at 24, I just knew that there had to be a better way to take care of people. And that what I was witnessing just wasn't that. So I very quickly face planted into trying to go find clients. Obviously, living in Southern California was not cheap. So I knew that quitting my job on the spot was a big decision. But if there's one thing I can tell you about me in my entire life, it's always been fall forward, right? And figure it out as you go instead of waiting for a special sign. They're really not going to come the way that you think they're going to come. So I just sort of took the bull by the horns on my own, but I literally went door to door and built about 17 clients in a portfolio over the course of about a year. They were only paying $500 a month. So it wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough to really give me a ton of experience. And about a year and a half into that, I met a gentleman at the gym who was buying and selling Instagram accounts and flipping them like you would buy and sell real estate. And it was very intriguing to me. And I was very curious as to what do you mean? What? You can buy an Instagram account? It was a very interesting thought process that I hadn't ever heard of before. And at the time, Instagram was very new. It was definitely in its infancy. And so he basically said, hey, come over for dinner. My wife and I will introduce you to this. If it works out, great. If you think it's stupid, then no harm, no foul. Fast forward to 2018, I had bought and sold about 10 different accounts on my own. And in the process, I had bought and sold a lot of advertising space on behalf of clients and really had a solid understanding of what works and what doesn't work. Right. So I would have clients that would reach out and say, here's $5,000, Michelle, can you go make the ads? Can you write the copy? Can you build the Canva templates? And then can you choose the accounts to actually put our ads on? So I had to buy the ad space, right? Hey, how much for an hour or how much for 24 hours and all of that. And then at the end of the time slot, if I was able to produce an ROI for that client that had given me that opportunity, they would just send me more money. So I did that for almost 5 years. And then in 2018, we'll call it a midlife crisis, but it was more of a quarter life crisis because I was only 27. But I ended up hiring a business coach in the UK, flew across the world alone by myself and met with him in Europe for almost 10 days. We mind mapped out everything that is now known as Beyond the Method. So long story short, I had left with an idea of, hey, I've been doing this for all of these people. How do we do this on a bigger scale? And then I came home from Europe with what is now known as Beyond the Method. And there's actually a picture that I have saved that I have framed of the whiteboard paper or the poster board paper that we had drawn all the arrows and circles and all the things on, right? Kind of just brainstorming with Beyond the Method circled in the bottom corner of it. So that was in 2018. Beyond the Method launched officially in 2019. And so we've been in the trenches, if you will, for the last almost 5 years. And quite honestly, if you would have asked me if I would be sitting in this chair right now doing what I'm doing 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you. But I'm very excited about where we're at and what we've been doing for sure.
Wow. I mean, I don't think I knew the depth of your story. That's wild. Like you are incredibly, I mean, I knew like just watching you do CrossFit, I knew you were a driver. I knew you were a hustler. I know you're a hard worker just from working alongside you this last year, but I had no idea. Like you like, holy cow, you're impressive.
Well,
Super
thank you.
impressive.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So I want to get into Beyond the Method, but before we do that, I mean, I think one of the challenges for real estate agents when it comes to social media is they feel like they have to be everywhere. They don't fully understand the difference between all the platforms. So given Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, all these platforms, why Instagram? What is it about Instagram that is so special and different?
It's my favorite question in this category. So thanks for asking it. But the fast answer I can give you without giving you guys a dissertation on why Instagram is always going to be my favorite. But the fast answer is Instagram is every platform in one, right? So it is TikTok, it is LinkedIn, it is Facebook, it is all of the platforms in one. And the reason for that is if you look at the way that the Instagram platform is designed and the history of how Instagram has progressed, Snapchat became really big, right? Well, then what did Instagram do? It created stories. TikTok started to take off. Well, what did Instagram do? It started making reels, right? LinkedIn was a really big platform for people to be able to generate business, hire people, pay for things, right? Find out about product. Well, what did Instagram do? It created the swipe up link many years into that, right? So all of a sudden you're looking at a platform that is just able to adapt really, really well, but also be a market leader at the same time, right? So if you've looked at Instagram's history, we've never had a lot of the crap that you will see about TikTok. You've never seen any of the issues that you see with Snapchat, right? I remember, and I don't remember the exact year, I'm going to butcher it, but somewhere between like 2014 and 16, Snapchat decided to go publicly traded. And I remember calling a friend of mine in a very similar space as me, and then the gentleman that I had learned of how to buy and sell accounts from. I remember having a very long conversation with him of like, hey, should we be buying this, like this stock? Like this would make sense to do, right? And I ended up not purchasing stock for Snapchat when it went publicly traded. But long story short, I had a lot of friends that did, and they ended up losing a crap ton of money. And Snapchat ended up being a colossal failure on the open publicly traded market. So I say all of that to you to say, right, that Instagram has never had these types of issues and has always been really, really good at adapting. Now, there's always going to be the tech side of things, right? Like where it goes down for half the day or whatever, but that's super normal. And that's why we have email lists, right, Christine?
Yes.
But so that's the biggest thing. The other piece to it that I love about Instagram is it's become it is your website, in my opinion, right? So you have highlights that you can use that stay there forever. And the way I look at the highlights they are the tabs on your website. So what would have normally cost you $15,000 to go build this super crazy fancy website, which is what people used to pay for these things, right? You can now use Instagram, which is a completely free platform up until now. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but they are now supposedly rolling out these paid tiers for Meta, which I don't know if you've seen that, Christine, but it's brand new. They just announced that they are potentially rolling out paid tiers for Meta verified Instagram users. So that just happened in the last 48 hours. So anyways, right, we now have a space where we can build our brands, we can build our companies, and we can do it for free. And more importantly than that, I believe that Instagram has created a human element to a website, for example, that a website itself doesn't have. And that sort of behind the scenes of, if I'm going to hire someone, I really want to feel like I know them and I like them and I feel connected to them. And then, your content and some of the things you're posting is now creating credibility within that like and know aspect. And I mean, I'm sitting in my girlfriend's house right now, but when I say that laughingly or lovingly, right, like she was my realtor and I found her on Instagram in order to determine whether or not she was going to be my agent. Right. And in that, we've built a relationship and a friendship, but her content spoke to me in that sense of she has a 2.5-year-old. Her husband was also in the military. We both had very similar personalities, and I could tell that through her content. And now we're amazing friends, and our kids get to spend a ton of time together. Right. And that's what Instagram does, which a traditional website or a traditional quote unquote LinkedIn or social platform might not be able to give other people. So I could go on a tangent, Christine, but yeah. Instagram is always going to be my place because I really, really feel like I get to be me, and I get to feel that from other people. And if I'm going to give someone my money to ultimately hire them, I better feel that way.
I've never thought about Instagram in that way. Like, you just described it as a very versatile platform where you can both have relationships with people in your personal sphere and build relationships in your business sphere, where you can build that know, like, and trust, and you can build your business and you can build your brand in a way that the other platforms just can't do, which is, through stories, through reels, through posts, through highlights, like all of this stuff. Like, I've never thought of Instagram in that way. It's so interesting. So when you think about our clients, right? Real estate professionals, lenders, agents, coaches in the real estate space, what mistakes do you think they're making when it comes to Instagram? What are some of the biggest mistakes you think they're making right now?
There's two big ones. Number one is they are trying to be what everyone else is telling them to be. And I just had a very, very lengthy conversation with someone about this. And she's been in the industry for 28 years. She's been selling real estate for a long time. Her mom was also a real estate agent. So she grew up in the community of this real estate world. I actually interviewed her on my podcast. So that, I don't know when that will come out, but it'll be a good episode for sure. But when she was growing up in the real estate community, there was this big dichotomy between personal and professional, and they were two totally separate things. Right. And this is the biggest one that I feel like right now is a big problem is real estate agents still, I've been doing this for 10 years and people are still asking me on just about every sales call, should I have a business account or a personal account? Do I need two? Do I need one? And it's like, it's the same conversation and it hasn't changed, right? No matter how long I've been doing this, it's the same exact question. So the answer to the question is you need one, and you need to have a business account in the sense of we need analytics. We need to be able to look at the things that are going to tell us, is our content working, or is our platform producing the right eyeballs, right? Or are we getting our content in front of the right eyeballs? But then more importantly, we need the business content mixed with the personal content, which ties into what I was saying before of like, hey, you are a human being with things that you do outside of selling real estate. And anyone that's listening to this, that's like, well, I don't do anything. Well, crap to that, because yes, you do. Right. And I had a lady, she was like, Michelle, literally all I do is work. And I was like, I don't believe you, because you have multiple kids. You have a husband that owns a restaurant. And so there's some stuff going on in your life outside of doing loans, right? And so when I was able to dig it out of her, she realized what I was trying to get her to do. But that's the biggest thing is our content. When we produce content on social, it has to be both, right? It has to be business. It has to be personal, because if you want someone to pay you for anything, they have to like you. And liking you is built through connection, right? So like, do I feel connected to you? Do you like hiking? Do you like gardening? Do you like bowling? Like, what is it? Right. So that's the first big mistake. The second big mistake, in my opinion, is that they are trying to R&D too much, right? Which just means rip off and duplicate. And what do I mean by that? And ultimately it comes down to they're looking at another real estate agent in their community and saying, oh, well, this person posted this, so that means that I should probably do that too, because they're successful. So I want to be successful. And they're missing the point of the platform and the power of the platform, which is to go build your hyper local community and to build your tribe within that. So if you think of, like, for me, for example, I live in Sango, which is a sub city of Clarksville. And if I'm in Sango, there's probably 50 realtors here, at least, that I can even think of just between the gym and all the places that I frequent. Right. So are all 50 of those realtors going to be for me if I want to buy or sell a house? No. Right. there's going to be one that's the right one for me, or there's going to be maybe two or three that I'm going to have to choose between. So how is that person going to attract me? Right. And the answer is the person that I'm going to hire is most likely going to share similar interests to me. Right. So they're probably going to be a CrossFitter to some extent, or somebody that works out a lot. Maybe it's not CrossFit, but at least it's fitness related. It's going to be someone that probably has a little boy. Being a boy mom is certainly the love of my life, if that makes sense. And the reason I wake up every day. Right. So you start to build your tribe. And so as an agent, one of the biggest holes in your game is you're not creating a hyper local community within your space. And you're assuming that you need to just produce content for everyone. And you're failing to miss the point of content really should be, if you guys are listening to this, think of it as like a Venn diagram. So on one side, you have passion. On the other side, you have your expertise. And then there's an intersection of those two circles, right? AKA Venn diagram. And that intersection is content. So your content that you should be producing is where does your passion and where does your expertise meet? Great example. I have a realtor in Connecticut that I love, that I have been working with for a long time. She loves houseplants, like hardcore houseplant lady. And so when she reached out to become a coaching client, one of her first questions was, how do I do that? Like, how do I talk about houseplants? Because it's like my favorite thing ever. But how do I also make it make sense for being a real estate agent? Because I thought I was supposed to be producing these videos about real estate. And I was like, well, how do we create an analogy between houseplants and real estate? And we ended up going down, a whole bunch of rabbit holes. ChatGPT was super helpful in this, right? Can you give us an analogy between houseplants and real estate? And it'll tell you. And then what we ultimately discovered was that we could do series around buying a home if you're a plant person. So how to even walk into a house that you might want to buy with the lens of a plant owner. How to move with houseplants, right? Because that's a whole thing. Asking questions of your moving company, like, hey, is your bed air conditioned, or whatever it might be, like things that you and I probably would never even think to ask. Yeah. She knows how to ask because that's her quote unquote passion. And then you merge that with real estate. And now all of a sudden we have this really fun and super engaging conversation that we get to have on our platform. And then in doing so, she's building a following of people that are just like in love with houseplants and are people like her. And if you look at some of her content, the comments, it's everybody asking, oh no, I bought a snake plant. Is my plant going to be okay? And like, they're just having all these fun conversations about all these random different kinds of plants. But my point in saying all of that is she's finding her people, and her people or the people that are out there will find her, and they will be the right people. They will reach out to her. She won't have to market to them at all.
Oh my God. There was so much to unpack there. And I love that example. You're so speaking my language because, and you know this about me, like I so like deep in my bones believe that we should be talking to our ideal customer, no matter who they are. Like, stop trying to be everything to everybody. So you're right on. And I love the example about how to bring in and merge your passion with your vocation, with what you do, which is either, loan money or sell homes or whatever it is. I want to go way back to how you started this conversation. The first thing you said was, have one account where you're showing your whole self. You're not just your personal, not just your business. It's the congruence of both. You said something that some people might not understand. You said, have one account, have a business account. Mm-hmm. What does that mean when you're talking to Instagram? Like in the very literal sense, in case people don't know.
Good question too. So the very literal aspect to this would be when you build an Instagram a platform, you have the option of building a personal page or what they call it professional page, or a creator page, like a creator account. Same concept. The only difference between a professional and a creator account is the music options. And then the second difference is that you can't use automation if you're a creator account, meaning you can't auto post your content, right? It has to be manually posted. Third-party platforms like Later and Planoly and Hootsuite and all these other platforms out there, if you have a creator account, you just can't auto post to them. But the reason why you need to have a business account or choose professional or creator, the main reason is the analytics, right? So when I'm coaching clients, like looking at the demographic of where their following is coming from is very, very important, especially if you're selling real estate. So if you're looking at your account and the top 5 cities that Instagram is telling you your followers are coming from are from nowhere near where you sell real estate, there's an easy diagnosis there, right? One, and hashtags have nothing to do with it anymore, but the main reason is that you're not prospecting in your hyperlocal community. So you're not reaching out and starting conversations with people in your hyperlocal community. So long story short there, that means you're passively prospecting, not actively prospecting, which is probably a whole nother episode for us. But the second thing with being a business account is the contact button. So this sounds so oversimplified. But if I cannot click a contact button in your bio and directly call you from your bio, I'm not going to do it. Like if I have to Google you, right, to find your phone number because you don't have your Instagram listed or your social or Facebook for that matter, this goes both ways. If I literally have to scroll your feed, this is a great example, right? If you're a real estate agent and I have to scroll all of your posts and then 2 fingers zoom in on a picture in order to see your phone number on a sign that you posted in someone's yard, that's a big problem. And I have had to do that with actually like calling clients of mine because I can't find their phone number anywhere. Right. So that's one. The other piece too is it doesn't need to be the bio in your bio, that 160 characters, because I can't click it. Right. So you need to have the contact button built out, and that's built through being a business or professional account. And so what you're dealing with is just a population, and I'm not talking just the younger generation. I'm talking any generation for that matter now. If I can't just click your phone number and call you, I'm probably going to go find someone that I can. Yeah. And that's just the reality of it.
Super helpful. So how do you measure the ROI of Instagram? It might sound like an easy question, but how does a real estate professional measure?
It's actually a hard question. That's the hard. Like, I mean, honestly, I've been doing this for a long time, as I mentioned, and that's the hardest question, truly. Even still to this day. And there's two forms of ROI in my opinion. And I would say for me personally, 10 years in, I have both happening. But the 2 different types is subliminal and tangible. So tangible would be someone reaches out and sends you a DM and says, hey, Christine, I'd like you to help me buy or sell a house. Or, hey, Christine, so-and-so referred me to you. You helped them sell so-and-so, whatever, 101 Apricot Lane. And I have a house in the same development. Can you help me? Right. Like that's a tangible, like, hey, this lead originated or generated out of my Instagram platform. And those are the best kind, right? Of course, those are the kind that we're like, yes, it's working. And we get really excited. But the reality is that's not what you're going to get most of the time. So subliminal ROI is, in my opinion, more powerful and is a true reflection of the compound effect of both the content you're producing, your visibility, right? Meaning, are people starting to learn about you and hear about you, and are people consuming your content all over the place? So subliminal ROI would be, someone reaches out and says, hey, I'd like to give you an opportunity to come out and talk to our group and do a webinar, right? There's no exact math there. I can't say for sure I just made $3,500 or whatever the number is, but I can say that I generated a conversation that created an opportunity. Another good one is podcasting, right? Like, how many podcasts have I been on where you're like, well, I can't directly correlate a dollar amount that is in my bank account from being on that podcast. But I can certainly say that I've generated a lot of other podcast opportunities by being on this podcast or being on X podcast. So then again, we created this compound effect of brand awareness aspect for someone like me. Now, if you're a real estate agent directly, right, what does that look like on the subliminal side? Great example. I have an agent in Houston that I work with right now, and she had a tulip company. So it was like this really adorable family that owns a tulip farm in Houston. And they reached out to her and they said, hey, we'd love to have you come out and record a video at our location and just promote the tulip farm. Right. And it's one of those sort of touristy destination type places in Houston. So it's all over Instagram, big social presence. They basically wanted my client to be sort of a quasi influencer for the tulip farm. And, my client calls me and she's like, Michelle, should I do it? And I was like, hell yeah, you should do it. Because if you're talking about trying to build a hyper local following, right, and start to do more deals in your hyper local area, what do you need to be? You need to be the travel person, meaning like the person that anyone and everyone will know. If I call you, you're going to be able to tell me where I should go, where I should live, where I shouldn't live. You're, like all the things that somebody that wants to buy a house might ask. Right. So the way I look at it is that for her, she's not going to get a dollar figure out of that instantaneously. She's not going to know. But what she is going to do is position herself to be in front of the ideal client in the ideal literal zip code that she wants to be selling the most real estate in. So,
yeah. Wow, that's super helpful. I remember way back in the day when I, worked in consumer products goods, it was the same thing. Like it was always really, really hard to equate, moving boxes with, television advertising. It's the same thing. It's creating that brand awareness so that you become top of mind when it's time to make that purchase. So I love that. So let's go back to Beyond the Method. So, I mean, you clearly feel really strongly about Instagram. You understand the platform in and out. Tell us about Beyond the Method and how it helps build businesses.
Yeah. Beyond the Method is two things. It's human psychology and sales psychology had a baby. And what I mean by that is if we want to sell to someone, we have to understand how people operate, right? So what actually makes my brain tick or makes me decide to take my credit card out of my wallet? And so Beyond the Method teaches how to tap into the brain of that person and then produce content to serve them while also not losing yourself in that process, right? Because if you're not posting content that you're passionate about, quite frankly, you're just not going to do it. And that's the obvious thing that a lot of people listening to this probably have fallen victim to, in the sense of they're like, I don't know what to post and half of it I don't like. And I feel like I'm just talking about things that other people are telling me to post about. So my consistency is lackluster at best. And that's why, right? So that's one of the biggest things. But the main core focus of Beyond the Method is really 3 phases. So I'll just describe the phases quickly. Phase 1 is content, right? So what are we posting? What does it sound like? And then thirdly, what does it look like? So what are we posting falls into the 4 pillars. What does it sound like falls into the scripting of how we sound on video, right? Being able to not just post good video content, but actually write good copy alongside it, which Christine, you and I have definitely bonded over this love of copy. And I was going to say coffee because that's the first thing that came in my mind, but that too. That too. So the copy itself, right? What are you writing as a caption when you're posting something? Because I can tell you, I see more crappy ones than I see good ones every single day.
Yep.
And I see a lot of captions that look like ChatGPT wrote it and you just copy and pasted it. And so we need to fix that, right? Because yes, you can use ChatGPT and yes, you should in theory to, cut the distance down between I got to do something and I need to get it out. But you should by no means take it at face value. You need to use your voice, etc. So, phase 1 is that, right? What are we posting? What does it sound like? And then what does it look like? This is where the branding aspect comes into play. What does your content actually create aesthetically? So when someone consumes it, how do they feel? Can they look at your grid and be like, dang, this person has it all together? Or this person is a hodgepodge. I call it the scatterbrained method, where it's just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And you're sort of like, does this person know what they're doing? And then that phase 1 transitions into phase 2, because once our content is a well-oiled machine, we're producing content consistently. We're doing what we need to be doing. It sounds good. It looks good. We then need to start prospecting. So phase 2 is all about prospecting. And that is, who are we talking to? What do we actually say to them? So this is where the sales psychology aspect comes into play. Knowing what to say to someone and then how to, I call it living in the lane of curiosity. So knowing how to ask questions and be able to turn conversations from personal to business, all of that is a huge part of what I teach. And then the third part to phase 2 is tracking it, right? So your ROI question is a great question for this, because we actually have to track who we're talking to, how many messages we're sending, what is the result of that? And then being able to identify if I sent 45 messages and only 5 of them responded, well, how can we get into all of those other 40 and figure out why they didn't respond and start to tweak some of those things. And we don't know that unless we track our math. So tracking is huge. And then phase 3 is what I call the Instagram flywheel. So it's your email marketing, which is where you come in, Christine. It's if we're going to make better content, we better start using it across multiple platforms, especially in our email. Because real estate agents, I love you guys, but your emails suck, right? Like they're just very generic. They're very boilerplatey. It's very copy paste. Like you can just tell it's an in-house marketing. That's like, it's a template. They're just maybe slapping their name on it and shoving it out. So if you're going to spend all this time quite literally building better content, you better use it. Yeah. And so that's where the email side comes in. There's other pieces to the flywheel part, which is Facebook groups, which is the 12 days of giving, which is things like being able to cross-pollinate on other platforms. So how do we prospect on LinkedIn? How do we how do we build our presence that we have on Instagram and also make that on YouTube and all these other platforms, right? So being able to cross-pollinate is huge. Facebook groups is huge. I have a very big Facebook group, and I shouldn't say very big in retrospect, but a little over 2,000 people. And I get a ton of business out of that Facebook group. And it's because I've created a funnel from my Instagram to that group. So that's all part of phase 3, which is really, okay, our content's well-oiled. We're prospecting really well. We're creating all this opportunity. Now we got to make sure we are truly everywhere and doing everything. But most people, and I'm sure you would agree with me, most people try to start in category 3 or phase 3. And then they're like, why is this not working?
Yeah. And yes, I mean, starting with a strategy is the most important thing. Like, what is it that you want to say, and how do you want to say it, and what do you want it to look like? Like that's the hardest part. But once you have that nailed down, then the rest becomes a little bit easier, because it's really just a method to get the message out there. So I love that. So Michelle, as we start to wrap this up, what are 3 things you would like to leave our community with today?
Here's the number one thing, and that no one's ever really asked me in a time in my life where this word is coming to my heart. But the number one thing I want people to hear when they hear me talk about this Instagram platform is hope. Like, you can do it, and you can do it in a way that will generate you a ton of opportunity. And most people, when they hear me talk, especially as of lately, have said, like, you just make it seem so simple and so approachable. And we've never felt that way about this platform. It always feels like it's so overwhelming, and it feels like I'm climbing Mount Everest trying to figure this whole thing out. And yeah, there's a lot to it, but you just make it seem so simple. Right. And so, like, the word hope is my favorite way to answer that question. As number one. And I would say really there's only 2 things, if I'm honest, Christine. Number one is that you can do it. There is hope. No matter how old you are, you can do it. Right. So I hate that when people are like, well, I'm really old, I'm kind of late to the game. No, you're not, because if you look at the NAR statistics, right, it's 57% of real estate agents claim that they're using Instagram to some capacity, and only 47% of that 46% of that 57% claim that they actually feel like they know what they're doing, which means literally a quarter of the real estate population is doing this. And Instagram's been around for 12 years, right? So you are not too late to the game in any capacity. But that's the number one thing. The second thing is that kind of like the black line approach is what I describe it as, but structure. Like, when you're listening to this, if you're like, okay, I know I need to get on the Instagram train, but I don't really know how, you need to interview an Instagram company or a social media company or someone that's going to help you. And you need to ask them very specific questions around the structure of what they're offering. Because I always kind of say, you need a yellow brick road. I need to know what to do, and I need to know how to do it in each category. So being really, really tactical. So I'm a huge believer in asking for help and asking for opportunity. Hey, I'm too busy. Can you come in and can you help me? Yes, absolutely. But knowing the right questions to ask. And I hope that listening to this with Christine and I, if you're listening to it, you realize, like, some of the questions you need to be asking might need to change.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's so super helpful. So where can people find you, and how can they get involved with Beyond the Method?
Fastest way is Instagram. And I will tell you, I answer all of my own messages. So if you send me a DM, it's me responding. my Instagram is Berman Media Social. So, and you can just type in Michelle Berman-Mikel and it will come up too. But the other piece to that, so the beyond the method part, my website is easy. You can just click on my website. It'll show you all the different categories of what we do. And then you can schedule a call with me directly through it. And then, YouTube is a great one. All of my long form video content, if you just need to get down the wormhole of like learning new things and kind of like be a sponge, that's a great place for it. Because I don't know, there's probably 60 plus videos on there and counting of just pure value. My free Facebook group, I can send you the link to put in the show notes, Christine, but my free Facebook group, I go live every Wednesday. So it's always 15 to 20 minutes of just sort of what's on my heart based off all of the calls I've had over the last week, all of the private coaching clients I've had, things that have come up. So usually I address specific conversations based off of like what's actually happening right now. I just did one yesterday about, how to have a presence without being physically present all the time. And it was literally because I've had so many coaching calls with clients where like that just kept coming up. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go do a live about that. So that's what those lives are. And I would say that's a great place to go down the wormhole of free value too.
Awesome. All right, Michelle, before we head out, finish this sentence. Know, like, trust is.
Oh man. Can I answer it any way I want?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So know, like, and trust is building a bridge between personal content and business content and the intersection of those two things. Right. Because again, to the Venn diagram point that I made earlier, when you have passion for something or anything that you're passionate about, and you combine that with your credibility and your expertise, and you start producing content about it, people will feel like they like you. People will feel like they get to know you. And then ultimately what's going to happen out of that is they're going to feel like they can trust you with their money and ultimately want to hire you. So, know, like, trust is building a bridge between the personal and the business and it being one.
Awesome. Oh my God. So, wow, that was amazing. So if you are not already following Michelle, I highly encourage you to follow her. We will have all of her links in the show notes here. Especially make sure you become part of her Facebook group so that you can, get all of those goodies and get to know her a little bit more. She is a dynamo. She is a mover and a shaker, a pioneer, a driver. And I'm so thankful for you for being here with us today. And I can't wait to see you in person.
Oh my gosh. I hope it's sooner versus later. We need that.
Me too. Thank you everyone for joining us. And we will look forward to seeing you next time. Ciao, everyone.